I asked Natalie to do that song. That is probably my favorite song out of many, because that is kind of the essence of this path that we're on. I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And it was March 8th or something of 1982 that I first walked into a Unity church. It was in Lansing, Michigan. And no one had ever told me that before. I started hearing things in that church that I had never, ever heard before. And that was the beginning of a complete point in my life. It was like before Unity and after Unity. I was a left-brain intellectual, going to graduate school with a lot of old wounds I was just not dealing with, just kind of living in my head, kind of escaping in graduate school. And I didn't know that God had something else in store for me. But I had one little quirk. I was interested in astrology. And I couldn't talk to any of my left-brain intellectual colleagues about that, that's for sure. But so I went to this spiritual center. They had this fabulous spiritual center there, to an astrology lecture, and I met these people who went to Unity. And they kept inviting me, come, you'd love it, come to Unity. So I did, and that was the beginning of all of this. So when I went to Unity, I heard things like, God is all there is. You are an expression of God. Stuff, like I said, never heard before. Life is consciousness. Oh my gosh. No one had ever told me that my thoughts created my reality or had anything to do with my reality. It's hard to imagine. This was 36 years ago. Now every best-selling book says that. But back in the day, that was big news. I see heads nodding. So I would hang out in the Unity bookstore a lot, and and they had a library too, because I didn't have much money. So I would just read and read and read and read all these new ideas, and it was just thrilling to my soul. And there was this one book by Emmett Fox called Life is Consciousness that made me really think about the idea that my life is the result of my consciousness. And so what I was learning in Unity was, if I look at my life, I can see what my consciousness is, and then I get to decide what do I want to change about my consciousness so I can change my life. That was just thrilling, I must say. So obviously I've been thinking about this stuff pretty much every day for 36 years, so I have to pick and choose what I'm going to share today. But one of the main things I want to talk about, the lessons that I've learned on my spiritual path, is the power of prayer. That's number one. It really kind of bothers me when people act like, well, prayer is kind of a last resort, and if you can't do anything else, you pray. But what you do is really more important than praying. I do not believe that. I think it all starts with prayer. Getting in alignment with God is where to start. That's where you figure out what to do. That's how you center yourself in the truth of life so that you can move forward. And there's plenty of studies even that show the power of prayer, that prayer actually works. So I would just like to, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but pray, okay? If you don't want to pray, ask me to pray. I would love to pray for you. In fact, that's what I do that all the time. I've prayed for every member of my family numerous times. Every baby that had trouble being born was, I call him a Silent Unity baby because I had everybody at Silent Unity praying. I had the whole, every minister I knew praying. Prayer works. That is one of the lessons I've learned. You don't have to believe it. You can find it out for yourself. I'm just sharing what worked for me. And it just makes sense to hook up to the greatest power in the universe and turn things over to the greater intelligence than you. I mean, we have our little limited perspective about what we can do to make things better, but God, the infinite power of the universe, knows everything, knows what to do. And I'll just share a technique that I use to pray, because I use light. I think light is the perfect analogy for God. I worked at Silent Unity 2 different times now. If you don't know, Silent Unity is the prayer ministry of the Unity movement. It's a 24-hour prayer ministry. If you ever need prayer, just call them. And even if you don't want to call them, if that's embarrassing to you or anything, they have an online thing. You just write your little prayer request in there, and you can feel the connection. Well, at least I can. And whenever I pray for anybody about anything, I always connect with Silent Unity when I pray, because there's power. There's power in numbers. There's power. That collective energy of prayer is real. It's true. Silent Unity has been praying for 127 years. And that energy is there. It accumulates. It's real. Can I get an amen from people who agree with me? Okay. All right. Prayer is real. It works. That's one of the main lessons I've learned on my path. And the second thing I've learned on my path is get someone to pray with you. Get in some kind of a group. Get someone to support you on your path. In the 80s, we called it masterminding. You get together and connect to a mastermind. The important thing about getting prayer partners is you get someone who is at least as spiritually advanced as you are, or more, and someone you can trust. What you want to get in a prayer partner is someone who will lovingly and gently call you on your stuff, like when you want to bitch and complain and moan and groan. You want someone who will gently and lovingly know that you're all right. First of all, know that you're all right. And they'll say things to you like, would you like to turn that into a prayer request? You know, how can we turn that into something that we can do something about instead of just complaining? That has changed my life, having prayer partners. And really, I find that when I get really messed up, it's because I haven't called my prayer partner enough. Now they're in Kansas City, and I have to call them. But I really recommend that. And the other thing is connect with information and inspiration at all times. Like when I first got on this path, man, I was trying to get it. I would tape everything with my little cassette recorder. That was in the 80s. Nobody told me it was illegal to tape things. I just taped everything. And then I would walk around all the time listening to my little Walkman, remember those, with my cassette tape in it? And to keep me focused, to keep me reminded. And now I have an MP3 player, same thing. It really helps to constantly have something in your mind reminding you, whether it's your music you listen to or talks that you listen to. It really helps to hang out with people or ideas that are of a higher consciousness than you are, that are where you aspire to be, and who can help you stay focused. That's really, really, really important. And the alternative and the corollary of that is when you're around toxic energy, you got to figure out a way to get away from it or deal with it or neutralize it somehow. That's a part of the path too. Okay, so the third major thing I've learned in my spiritual path, out of many that I'm not going to talk about them all, is life is a mirror, okay? I had this experience when I first started going to Unity. I heard that all the time. Your life is a reflection of you. Like if someone pushes your buttons, you need to look within and see what is that within yourself. And I thought, well, that's interesting, you know. But then when I was working at the bookstore in the 80s, I just had this light bulb moment where I saw people doing that. They were criticizing other people for doing things that I could see that they totally did it themselves. And it's just like, oh yeah, that's right. That's the way it works. And it's so hard to see ourselves. That's the point. Let's give ourselves a break, okay? It's really hard to see our own stuff. So that's why it's really helpful to just kind of observe what goes on around you, okay? And then when you observe what goes on around you without judgment, mind you, then the next thing is to observe ourselves. Just observe ourselves. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to judge ourselves. Just observe what pushes your buttons. Oh, now what is that really about? What is that about? There's a line from the Course in Miracles, I'm never upset for the reason I think. And that's absolutely the truth. Whatever our ego wants to get all upset about is something deep within us that's longing, yearning to be healed. And it's usually something like, I'm not good enough, and I can't do anything right, and stuff like that. And so we put on this big ego mask, and we try to blame other people and criticize other people, when really our own soul is yearning to be healed of the root cause within ourselves. So that is a huge truth that we can really use to our advantage. Life is a mirror. So we need to take responsibility for our judgments and use them to heal ourselves. And then the other thing is to take charge of our emotions and really find a way to channel them in constructive ways. Okay, I have a little story to tell about that. I was about anger, because usually anger is a big issue for people. Well, I don't know, everybody I know. So I had some kind of an experience where I was just angry. Oh, I was so angry at these people. I was just so righteously indignant, about what they did to me and blah, 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 blah. And I was just ranting and raving. I used to go to this little park where I could walk and meditate and talk to myself and talk to God and stuff. I can't remember if I was ranting and raving out loud or not, but I was. And I got back to the car, and the electrical system on the car was dead as a doornail. Nothing was doing anything. And for some reason, it was God, it came into my mind, it had something to do with my state of mind. It had something to do with my anger. So I repented. I can't remember exactly what I did, but man, I brought to bear all the spiritual tools I had. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I take it all back. I sent love to these people. I sent light. God, I clean up my mess. Help me clean up my mess. Light. And it worked. The electricity came back, and I drove home. And then, as if the universe, because I was thinking, oh, that could have been a coincidence, blah, blah, blah. Maybe my car is dying, blah, 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 blah. So the next day, it happened again. I went to the mall, and I was getting into that anger rant and rave, same situation, same people. And it happened again in the parking lot of the mall. So I got out, took a walk, and did the same thing again. I repent, I'm sorry. I get it, God. I truly get it. And I went back to my car and started. And it never happened again. It wasn't the car. It was me. And so that was God showing me that everything is energy. That our thoughts, our emotions are they're real. It's science, they're causative. And I was just thinking about, when I was thinking about this last night, I was thinking about, man, if I could knock out the electrical system in my car with anger, how could I mess up my body? Your heart is basically an electrical organ. You could give yourself, in fact, that's what they say. I guess there's research that show that angry people die more of heart attacks. So these are things to pay attention to, okay? We're powerful. Our thoughts are powerful, our emotions are powerful, and we get to take responsibility for them. Okay, so then one of the things that I'm constantly working with is finding techniques that work to clear the negative stuff that comes up day to day. Because it's very clear to me that if you don't clear stuff as it comes up, it just festers, it gets worse. And the older you get, the more you're accumulating all that stuff from your earlier years. So I start young, you young people, and clear stuff as it comes up. So there's a lot of techniques out there. Tapping, maybe you don't know about it, but you tap acupressure points and you let your stuff come up. The whole idea of clearing stuff is you let your stuff come up, your negativity, you get right into the feeling of it, and then you bring some kind of spiritual solution into it. You bring in light, you turn it over to God, you have a technique that you use. I have a technique I use that I got from Theta Healing, which you ground to the earth, you say ground, transcend, and you have this visualization of connecting with the whole universe. And that, it's scientific. It puts your brain in a theta brainwave, and that is your scientific connection to God. A theta brainwave is the brainwave of prayer. That is your connection to God. So I firmly believe that all this religious stuff, prayer and everything, is just science we don't understand yet. And we're beginning to. Like, how does prayer work? I don't know. But I think it's some kind of science that we'll eventually learn. So anyway, I'm thinking about doing a workshop on techniques to clear stuff as it comes up, because what I know is that we are in an amazing time on planet Earth when we need all the help we can get. The energy speeded up, that's scientific fact. The vibration of Earth, hertzes and all that, it's off the chart compared to what it used to be. It's like all the darkness from eons is coming up to the light to be healed. It's very challenging right now, and we need all the help we can get. We need to support each other. We need to be kind and loving to ourselves. And we need to find all the spiritual tools we can to get us through our earthly walk. And I want to say something about timing, because I know that many of you have children and time is an issue. Well, I think at every stage time is an issue in some way. There's always some reason not to meditate, not to do the work, not to work on yourselves. There's always a reason, but there's always a way. I have to say, there's always a way. Like, and with the whole issue of children, like, just my taking care of Rochelle, not Rochelle, she was my baby in the old days. Liliana, I babysit her, and I take it as an opportunity, as a spiritual opportunity, because being around children, all children, precious, precious children, opens my heart. And I just take that as my spiritual practice. Okay, here I am in the presence of this divine being, fresh from God, fresh from God, who hasn't been made cynical and yet. They're fresh from God. I just open my heart to that. And if I have no time to meditate or do anything else, that's my spiritual practice for the day. So there's always a way. And that's why I like to find techniques that you can do on the fly. Like when you get triggered on the fly and you don't have time to go sit down and meditate. Figure out a way to turn it over to God and move through it quickly. And there's all kinds of resources out there now. We live in amazing times. Back in the day, there was no internet. Now you can get spiritual inspiration at the click of a button on the computer. So okay, that's enough. The last one is be compassionate with ourselves and others, because we're never done. I've been on this path for 35 years. I still get depressed. I still get angry. I still get triggered. I still get in my ego. I forget everything I know. That's just the way it is. So we have to be kind to ourselves and know that we're never done. There's a quote from Abraham that I had BJ put on the program. Something about, you're never done. You're always incomplete. There's always something new. There's always something new, a new challenge, a new opportunity, a new phase in your life. So we just have to relax and go with it and have compassion on ourselves and others and know that everything really is all right. Can I get an amen? Okay. All right. To be continued. I have a lot more things I'd like to share about what I've learned in my spiritual path. But let's have a time of meditation now. Let's just settle in.